All right, my beautiful ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to bring you guys somebody that is actually a kind of a personal hero of mine, Dave. I don't know if you know this, but when I first got
Personal
started,
hero.
like 2007, I actually didn't know a whole lot of people that were actually like really making a living online. And I saw some people like selling like scammy kind of ebooks on the Warrior Forum, but you were the first like legitimate businessman that ever came up across my radar. So I was secretly kind of stalking you and um, everything.
Like nobody even knows the backstory of any of this. Like that's the craziest.
Yeah.
Um, it's like
And
the craziest thing. Like thanks Google. I guess
yeah.
we owe a big thanks.
Yeah. So I was
Um,
stalking you for a couple of years, kind of a little bit in secret. And you were like just
was that
posting.
before or after I reached out and reached out to you though initially?
I think that was a little bit before.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's just kind of weird. So people
It
don't know
is.
this. So I had this is back in what 09, 2010, sometime around that time, I guess,
Yeah.
around right before this.
Sure.
And I had this crazy idea to do an SEO service. It was like a backlink service using this crazy Russian software. Everything was all in Russian. You had to get everything. You remember this shit?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you had to
Yeah.
get
I
it like
was.
translated
I
on
knew how to run the
Upwork from like
software. That's what
the
that was.
Russian dudes. You were like the ninja of running this software,
Yeah.
right? And it was like working like crazy until one day Google said, "Nope, this is." I think it was like J.C. Penney's. They got busted. Somebody outed them. It's like all in. You can Google it, and that was the end of the end. And then Google changed everything. That fucked our whole business.
Yeah, it
And
really didn't. I still made money from that software after because you could spam forums and that was
oh man, that was $1 million idea
it
that just
really was.
like
Google fucked us.
because
So
of Google, like they just changed every. If we were like 2 years earlier, we would have had $1 million business easy.
100%, 100%. Yeah, and it's interesting to see you because I know when you first got started. Really, a big part of it was the info product business, and I don't want to go too much into that because that's not necessarily where our audience is. But you did a whole lot of dating stuff that really just started as like just helping your buddies out, and it evolved into a business, and then you became a pretty brilliant email copywriter, and you're fucking relentless because I've been on your email list for like 10 years and you're still emailing me like 10 years later.
On the
um
same shit.
so the money is really in the follow-up. This guy's got 10 years worth of follow-up, so just want to throw that out there. And I wanted to bring you on because you've made a really awesome transition into the agency space. And one of the things I really love to highlight for our people is just really fucking cool agency owners, which you check all the boxes for that. And you've been doing from the e-commerce stuff, like really helping people with the back end. And I just find that kind of fascinating that you can build, a 7-figure agency bringing your email skills. So I'd love for just, so somebody doesn't know you, doesn't know what you're about, just to kind of talk about like what you do, a little bit about how you got into that.
So I run an agency. We do email and SMS for e-commerce brands. And honestly, I didn't like set out to do this. It pretty much just kind of happened.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm a big believer of letting that happen in business and life. Just kind of like fall. They always say like go with the flow. Well, for me, that's how you go with the flow. And as I was making the transition from selling ClickBank and info products to doing agency stuff, I didn't know what my next move was going to be. I didn't like set out and say, hey, I'm going to start an agency. This is what I wanted to do. It just kind of happened. I met a guy in a Facebook group. I noticed lived like 10 minutes away from me, and he's from the same country as my wife. My wife is from this really small country in South America, Uruguay. So I hit him up and I was like, hey man, my wife is from the same country, blah, 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 blah. I saw that you're, doing affiliate marketing or whatever. And we're like 10 minutes away. Let's meet at Starbucks or something. And so I would meet this guy at Starbucks a few times a month, like once or twice a week or something like that. And he just had a good vibe. Like when you meet somebody and you're just, you're working on your thing, they're working on their thing, but you just have a good, energy. And long story short, I lost touch with him for a couple of months. He went and got married, like officially in his country, and he came back and he was doing Shopify. But I noticed he wasn't sending any emails. Okay. Now I suck at Facebook ads. I had no idea. I understood Shopify, but I really had no idea like what the fuck it was. I didn't know how I could add value to what he was doing, but I knew that I was good at writing emails. So I literally spent 5 minutes. I wrote up like 3 emails, simple abandoned cart campaign, and boom, we stuck it in the account. And then 6 months later, he messaged me and he's like, "Bro, remember those emails you wrote for me?" I was like, "No, it's like 5 minutes of work. I don't remember."
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, "We did $300,000 in sales. Can you write more emails for me?"
Hmm.
And at that moment, that's when the light bulb went off, because he was telling me, like in that conversation, he's like, I'm teaching drop shipping at that time to my students, and my business is blowing up. I have like a lot of students I can send you that need your help. And I was like, okay, bing, light bulb goes off. Time to start an agency. And at that time, I was already about 90,000, almost $100,000 deep in software development, building an email tracking platform. I had
Actually, I
spent 2 years in
remember that.
development on it. And I was like, oh, fuck, like I spent all this money developing this platform. It's not 100% ready yet. It needs more money. I'm having a hard time selling it on webinars, but it's selling. So I can kind of grind through it and, I'll make it work. And it's a good software, but I have this thing that looks like it's taking off like a rocket ship. So you really have to make, decisions, right? They say go with the flow. Well, struggling selling a software that's like a money pit, that's not going with the flow, right? That's like swimming upstream for me. Like everything I was doing, it was like a struggle. Every step I took, it was like I had 10 people on my back, right?
Yeah.
That's not the way that you become successful. That's like that's like torture, right? Like self-inflicted torture, like knowing
Totally.
that what you're doing is difficult and most difficult, and you just keep doing it. Well, I was like, fuck that. I'm going to do the agency thing, and let me see where this goes. I can always come back to the software. It's always going to be there. But let me see where this thing goes. And that was it. And it just took off.
So, there's a couple of amazing things there I want to just unpack really quickly for people. I actually had a similar experience, by the way, where I was doing a lot of Facebook ads for lawyers and grinding it out, trying to like really just bring them some business. And it was really, really hard. And, we'd have to split test like 8 gazillion variations and be tracking it. And then all those kind of things. And, one day I just got the idea to send a couple of emails to their past clients. And the idea wasn't like I'm going to make them millions of dollars, but I thought, if I could just bring them one person, then they would stay long enough for my Facebook ads to work. Because it was a problem where they'd run it for a month and they'd say, well, I've seen no results in the first month. And, try and tell them it's a marathon, not a sprint, right, and we're going to dial it in and all those things. I was like, but, if I could just bring them one person on day one, they'd be really happy. So I wrote a 4-day cash machine with Frank Kearns, just like, hey, thank you for being awesome. We got this special thing. And I brought it kind of to the offline world. I didn't really think anything of it. And I was 6 months later, just like you, I bumped into the same lawyer at a conference and he said, do you remember those emails? And like you, I was like, no, I do not remember those emails. He said, well, I got a couple cases and one of them's $100,000 case, and gave me a big hug. And like, ding, like, what am I doing? Grinding it out, trying to do Facebook ads and webinars and all the things you got. So I'm glad you were smart enough to go upstream. I think it took me a couple extra months on top of you. So I'd love to know kind of like your thought process on getting away from this idea that so many agencies are stuck in, that I have to use Facebook ads and I have to convert cold traffic, because you're mostly not. You're mostly just working with their customer list, helping them, or their almost customer list, their prospect list of people who almost bought, and helping them add value more to their back end. And I'd love to just kind of hear your perspective on that after all these years of doing that and having your own business. I'm sure you got some good insights.
Well, like for e-commerce brands, they know they need to do email, but they just don't have the time, skill set, or capabilities, or know-how, or however you want to package it up. And so, there's very few people on the planet that have the skill set and ability to do what we do. And, we just have just a great situation as far as the software, the skill set, and then the clients. I think anytime you have those situations, and it's not just for this market. I mean, there's so many markets you could say that with. There's where you have a particular need, you have a particular skill, and then you have a particular you know service or methodology or system to fulfill it, right? That's it's pretty much like that, and we find the clients that we can help, and that's really all we do. We focus on people that we know that we can help, and we're not interested in making a quick buck. It's about making sure that we have clients stay with us for a long time, and who you do business with, and who you don't do business with. So I probably turn down about 80% of the deals that come my way, just because they're just not good fits. Kind of like went around about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love that longevity focus, and I think a lot of people don't realize, like, when you're first getting into like agency space or really any sort of online business, people are most enticed by dollar signs. Like I see all the time in like agency groups where people post like, I sold 20 clients and took home this many paychecks. But from having been in business, when you take on the wrong people, the refunds that come later, the disappointed people, the headaches and all those kind of things. And so like understanding the right fit and it's just as much about being in business a long time as it is about having the biggest short-term cash spike that you can get. So I love that you were a little focused on that. I know you're a busy man, so I don't want to keep you because I know you got a furniture.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you think about that, if you think about it though, it's just about like stopping yourself from having headaches down the road. And maybe if you haven't run into that before, you don't know to look out for that after. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
And so maybe that's just experience. Maybe, who knows, but I think it's just starting with the end in mind, and really trying to make it as easy as possible for your team to do the work great, right? And I've heard that at seminars before, and it just never really clicked for me. But I think sometimes you have to hear the right information at the right time.
Yeah, totally.
And then it really clicks for you. Sometimes you hear it at the wrong time, and it's just it's kind of in one ear, out the other ear.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing it in different seminars, but it just never clicked for me. It was like productize. And I was always like, yeah, like whatever. But when I started the agency, it really made sense. Productize, make sure. And we had one bad client, early on in the first 6 months, and he was like just major increasing the scope of work, I guess, is the type of client, the client, and I'm sure everybody's had a client like that always tries to increase the amount that they, and it was just a nightmare, and we had to put our foot down. And at that point, we call it growing pains in the agency. And it's just growing pains. We learned at that point, like, we have to screen for these kind of clients beforehand.
Totally.
And be very clear with what's the deliverables and what's not deliverables, and so on and so forth. So
yeah, I love that. Not just because not getting paid for your work as most people think, but what ends up happening, I've seen this, like I just had one of my biggest clients in our mastermind who's really crushing it. He landed like a really huge kind of lawyer client, and they asked him, can you do a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and things that are not his specialty, more or less. And he said yes, and then found like somebody to white label it. And now he's having that deal fall apart in his face, not based on the work he's doing, but on the little pieces he was doing around the side that aren't even really his work, that he's just kind of flipping to somebody else. And, it's a big name that in this industry, like, kind of opens a lot of doors other places that he's now having slammed shut. So I love that discipline. I would love just to ask you two things real quick, because I know you're a busy man. I don't want to keep you forever.
sure.
First is how you've learned to have the discipline to say no, because I think most people, especially in the beginning, the idea that you would be turning away 80% of the business sounds like just crazy. You'd be like, you kind of, I know at least when I got started, probably in 2007, my ideal SEO client at that time is if you had a credit card, you were ideal. And that created, a whole bunch of like terrible, miserable client situations that I just didn't know any better. And sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
So I think, knowing that my partner is going to be up my ass, like, what the fuck were you thinking with this client, right? Like letting this client in, like what's going on here? So just knowing that, I think is enough to let me know to screen, to screen the clients. But it's really just preempting issues, because what's going to end up happening is this: clients, you're going to be a bad fit, then they're going to be complaining on and off. Okay, that complaining is going to result in you taking additional time, whether it's phone calls or emails or Slack messages or text messages or whatever it is. It's going to be additional time taking you away from whatever else you're doing to support this client that's not happy.
Yeah.
So now you're dealing with an unhappy client that's not a good fit, and ultimately, they're going to leave, whether it's now or in the short term, or they're thinking about leaving or whatever. And they might try to, they might want a refund. Who knows? I've had situations where, we've done that, where the client wasn't really an ideal fit. Their technology stack was a little complicated. And, I said, what, let's take the client on. I think they're a good client, that they have a lot of stores. So it'll be a good, like multi-store client for us. And, it backfired. We had nightmares with the tech. We couldn't do what we did. So I messaged the client back. I said, I'm sorry, we can't handle this for you. Because of your technology stack, here's a refund. I just did a refund of your order. Done.
Yeah.
It was like a $8,000 refund. Boom. So
I found too, like the other hidden cost in that as well is, in addition to everything you said, which is so spot on, is for me personally, like whenever you take on a bad client, then your confidence and certainty to then sell the next client is like you don't always feel good about entering into relationships if you're not quite sure they're going to end miserably or not. Like if you're thinking like, hey, this person might just hate me in 6 months, it takes some real discipline. I'd love to just give a short plug to whatever you got. So if somebody's got a big e-commerce brand, they're looking at some email and some of the back end and all that genius stuff that you do, and they're interested, what's the best way to find out more and get in on some of that genius Ms. Brain?
Just go to our website, theemailexperience.com. You can check out examples of the emails, stuff like that. Everything's there. Check it out, book a call, see if we can help.
Yeah, and I do actually know a few people that have worked with Dave kind of indirectly. So he's the real deal, not just because I've known him forever, but like, the stuff works. And it's in a lot of ways, I always say like in a lot of businesses, they step over $100 bills to go chase after hard nickels and difficult to acquire. And Dave's the guy who help pick up the easier $100 bills in your e-com business.
There's so much money out there, not just with e-commerce, but your clients are dealing with what? Agencies. They're selling high ticket stuff.
Yeah.
Doing webinars and stuff like that. I mean, I've got clients that do that, and there's so much money in the emails that they don't follow up with. You could just keep emailing people back to your calls, back to booking calls, back to webinar. I mean, it's crazy, man. You can pick up another 10-20%.
I know.
Easily.
And the beautiful thing for people doing that is it almost always makes the thing they're trying to figure out is how to make the Facebook ads work. And almost always when they do the emails, the Facebook ads start working because the numbers are bigger. I have like coaching friends who have 10,000 people who registered for their webinars so that they can sell 20 people, and they want to get 40. And they say, well, we better go get 10,000 more registrations. And on their list, 8,000 people have never even seen their webinar, let alone, made it through the end or booked a call or anything like that. So
just got to squeeze the juice a little bit more, man.
Squeeze the juice.
Squeeze the juice,
with you, man.
It's there, man. It's there. It's crazy.
Well, brother, man. I won't keep you because I said we'd be 20 minutes, and I so appreciate you doing this because you're one of the
pleasure.
The coolest motherfuckers I've kind of known forever. Man. So thank you once again.